Hello everybody. We're doing another Instagram live. We're doing another video this week. We do these every Monday night at 5 p.m. on my Instagram feed. My name is Dr. Megan Strodel and I'm a naturopathic doctor, and one of the things that I'm passionate about is hormones and women's health and gut health. And we've been going through a series called the hormonal effects of weight loss. And so what I've been doing each week is breaking down the physiology of several different hormones and how they affect our bodies and affect our body's ability to lose weight. So let's see, this is week 3, and first week I talked about cortisol, the second week I talked about insulin, and now we're talking about glucagon. We're going to talk about glucagon today, and I want to talk about glucagon because I might have to tie my hair up. I've got my fan blowing on me. I wanted to talk about glucagon because we just talked about insulin, and they are actually completely opposite. So, we know that cortisol and insulin are really closely tied. Hi, Jenny. Nice to see you. But no one talks about glucagon, and it's really important to understand the interplay between insulin and glucagon when we're talking about weight loss, because I find that with most of my patients, this is where people go wrong. So, without further ado, why don't we jump into it? First off, I wanted to do a recap of everything, because some of you probably haven't seen all of the other videos. No, poor connection. My internet is a little spotty, so I hope you guys, I might have to move a little bit closer to the Wi-Fi. Okay, so I wanted to do a little bit of a recap for those of you that haven't seen the other videos. So, for instance, cortisol is a hormone that is made by your adrenal glands, and it's typically high in the morning and then trickles off throughout the day. And cortisol is responsible for waking us up in the morning, helping to balance our blood sugar, it helps give us energy, and it helps deal with stress too, and that's probably the main function of cortisol. So we like cortisol, but cortisol has to be secreted in the appropriate amount. So if there's too high cortisol, that's a bad thing. If there's too low cortisol, that's a problem as well. So we really want it to be in this Goldilocks level. So when cortisol is too high, and that's primarily due to like a long-term stress or a long-term chronic overexercise, then you tend to break down proteins in your body, which tends to put you at what's called a catabolic state. So you're breaking a lot of things down, breaking down a lot of cells, and then you tend to store fat, and then you tend to store the sugar that you eat for fuel for later, but insulin also helps you make glucose from other sources. So there's lots of different things going on with cortisol. It helps break down like our proteins. It helps us use our protein, but that's usually a negative effect of cortisol. We don't want to break down the protein that we've been hard working to put down, and it tends to help us store fat, which maybe 100 years ago was helpful, but usually for people now, that's not helpful. So the thing is that a lot of people are exercising too much, or in a way that's not beneficial for weight loss, this chronic cardio idea that you guys might have heard of. And so if you exercise too much, and that will make you secrete more cortisol. So we really don't want to exercise too much. So if you want more info on cortisol, that was like my 2-3 minute recap. Definitely go back and look at that video. We're talking about glucagon today for those of you guys that just joined in. We're doing a recap of all the hormone effects of weight loss videos. So insulin is the hormone that we talked about last week. So insulin's a hormone that's made by your pancreas. It tends to rise when your blood sugar goes up, which all of these hormones, you guys, they their function is to help us with glucose homeostasis in the body. So these hormones are specifically designed to help us keep our blood sugar at the right level. This is really important because in America, we have horrible blood sugar regulation. We have people that are on a blood sugar roller coaster all day but haven't developed a pre-diabetes or diabetic state. We have people that have pre-diabetes, which happens when you have insulin resistance and you have long-term hyperglycemia. And then you have varying states of diabetes where your body is so insulin resistant, like in type 2 diabetes, that its insulin, its glucose use is so impaired. And then we have, type 1 diabetes, which isn't necessarily in this discussion because that is when you literally don't make any insulin, so you can't use the fuel, and that's a whole other problem. So we have a lot of metabolic problems when all of these hormones are off, and this all happens because of poor diet and poor lifestyle. So this is, for all of these hormones, really, we don't need to do anything fancy to help get them in the optimum levels. We need to buckle down and really, really evaluate, like, what are we doing? What are we eating? Are we sitting all day? Are we exercising? Are we exercising too much? Are we not resting enough? Are we sitting on the couch too much? Just so many different things. Are we eating the right foods for our own biochemistry, which is something that I really help patients and clients to figure out. Because we're all super biochemically individual. So one diet does not fit everybody. So let's see, what were we talking about? Insulin. Insulin will go up when your blood sugar goes up. So insulin is trying to protect you from having a really hyperglycemic episode. So insulin goes up when blood sugar goes up. Insulin also does a couple other cool things like increase protein synthesis, fat synthesis, and also increases glycogen synthesis, which is when you store your glucose for later. So the idea is if blood sugar is high, then insulin's going to be high. And then if insulin is always high, then your cells are going to become resistant to the signal of insulin. So your cells will not be able to open the door and bring the glucose inside, which is a problem. That leads to hyperglycemia or high blood sugar all the time. And so if we can't bring glucose into our cells for fuel, then we essentially get, hi Kelsey, we essentially get really fat and inflamed. Oh, hi fiance. We get really fat and inflamed, and that's a problem. So high insulin I see as a really big problem for all my patients, and I feel like it's kind of the secret to people's weight loss woes. Though the way that you fix your insulin problems is all lifestyle, and the majority of people aren't truly willing to change their lifestyle. And some of that is because what I'm going to talk about at the end of this video is how we deal with this glucagon insulin problem. The ratio of the two can be a problem. And the things that have been perpetuated in diet culture and science for the last several decades have been incorrect based on studies that were not valid and not helpful and not really in line with what truly happens in the human metabolism. So we have this idea that fat is bad, carbs are good, you can exercise any amount of calories off, that it's calories in, calories out, but the food that we eat has a huge effect on our biochemistry on the micro level. And so the thing I like to say is 150 calories of a candy bar is totally different metabolically with its metabolic effects than, say, 150 calories of plain chicken breast. Totally different thing. So to take this example and run with it, if you eat 150 calories of a candy bar, what your body's going to do is increase its insulin because your blood sugar is going to go up from the sugar in the candy bar, and then you're going to turn on all of those negative fat storage problems that I was just mentioning. Whereas if you ate 150 calories of the chicken, all you're eating is essentially pure protein, which your body's going to break down into amino acids, and then your body's going to use that. And then, if you eat too much protein at once, then your body's going to use that, turn that into either glucose or fat. So that's a whole nother topic. But you see there's a huge difference between if you eat that Snickers bar versus if you eat that chicken breast. And because there has been such a negative connotation to eating protein sources like meats in this country, and we tend to, for some reason, favor or idolize a plant-based diet. A plant-based diet actually lacks a lot of the amino acids that we need, but it also really throws off the glucagon-insulin ratio, and that ends up being a problem. Okay. Caveat, I'm not against plant-based diets. I think they can be helpful for particular cases. However, the thing that I'll leave you with to percolate on is that there's no culture in the world where their traditional diet is totally plant-based. Zero cultures are like that except the American culture, and that is because we have things like tofu and tofurkey and seitan and all this other really, really highly processed foodstuffs. So percolate on that. If you have questions about that, let me know, because I can talk about this all day. So let's see, I got my outline over here, which is why I keep looking over here, because I want to stay on track. You guys know that I get super passionate about this. Okay, so let's talk about glucagon. We just did a recap on cortisol and insulin for those of you that are just joining. And glucagon is, the way that I think about glucagon is, if you think about everything that insulin does, glucagon is essentially the opposite. So we release insulin when there is an increase in our blood sugar, which is great because insulin is telling the cells, open up the door and bring the glucose in, bring the blood sugar in, which is what we need. That's how our cells get fuel. That's awesome. But glucagon's the opposite of insulin. So glucagon has a lot of those similar effects, but without the negative effects, because glucagon is typically released in a fasting or a low blood sugar state to help you actually make sure that your blood sugar is not dropping too low. Does that make sense? That makes sense. So I'm going to read that again. So glucagon increases blood sugar when the blood sugar is low. Okay? So a rise in blood sugar is going to decrease glucagon. So that's opposite of insulin. Insulin is secreted in response to a high blood sugar state. Glucagon is released decently continuously for low blood sugar states. So let me put it in perspective in maybe a different way. If we didn't have glucagon, then we essentially would have to be eating constantly. That thing where you go to bed and sleep for 8 hours every night, that is when glucagon is really, really powerful. But we can use, or I should say really, really necessary, but we use glucagon also throughout the day to help us maintain our blood sugar too. So glucagon, I'm going to throw some science at you guys. Glucagon will increase glycogenolysis, which is the use of sugar for fuel. It will increase gluconeogenesis, which is the use of fat and other things like protein for fuel. But both of these things will increase blood sugar in the fasting state. Okay. Do you guys see the difference? Give me a heart if it's working out. So the way that I like to think about it is basically glucose will, or I should say glucagon. Oh gosh, I'm hoping I'm not going to mess all these up this whole time. I tend to do that. Cholesterol and cortisol, it's like, oh my gosh. So glucagon takes stored fuel, thank you for the heart, glycogen from the liver, and it will release glucose to the bloodstream. So glucagon has two ways of raising your blood sugar levels. It's either going to take glycogen from storage, which glycogen is the storage form of glucose, and it's heavily, it has high density in both muscle and liver. So glucagon goes up, and it's going to increase the use of glycogen. So glycogen is going to break down, your liver is going to release glucose into the blood, and we want that to keep our blood sugar levels stable. Okay. Let's talk about the ratio for a second, because glucose and insulin always have a ratio depending on what is happening metabolically. So when one is high, the other is lower, and vice versa. So for instance, if you have high insulin, you're naturally going to have low glucagon, because glucagon is the thing that's going to raise your blood sugar and keep your blood sugar stable in a lower glucose state. And insulin is going to help you once you have a lot of glucose coming in a high glucose state. So the way I like to think about this is, if you have high insulin because you're overweight, obese, or you have some pounds that you need to lose, then, oh, that's a great question. What are the differences in symptoms? I'll get to that, because that's a little bit more complex. We'll circle back around to that. So if you have insulin problems and your insulin is high, that means that you essentially have higher blood sugars, and so glucagon is not going to be very prevalent during that time. And the problem is that a lot of people are running around with higher blood sugars than they should be at, and so they're not getting the full effect of glucagon. So their ratio is skewed. So they have high insulin, low glucagon, and so they always have essentially fat storage being turned on with the insulin effects. So what we have to do is essentially lower insulin to get glucagon. Oh my gosh, so many G words: glucose, glucagon, glycogen, gluconeogenesis. So we have to lower insulin to keep glucagon at the rate that we want it to be at the level that we want it to be. And the reason why, and I'm going to do another video on this soon, because I know that you guys probably would love it. The reason why glucagon can be very important and very beneficial metabolically is because glucagon also helps to make ketones. And ketones are a way that we get fuel in the body. There's two different ways that we get fuel is we use glucose, which is just sugar, blood sugar, which we get in from our diet, or we make ketones. And glucose or ketones are what we call a fuel source, which makes ATP, which is the ultimate fuel for all of the cells on the cellular level, so that all of our cells can have energy and do all of their things that we do. It's kind of like, we get energy from food, and so we do all the things that we do. For your cells to get energy and do all their metabolic processes, they have to either run on glucose or ketones. So we can get fuel two different ways. Most people are running on glucose, which is just blood sugar, which is what you get from your diet. Some people are on more of a ketogenic diet or more fat-based diet, so they promote the synthesis of ketones, or they're taking exogenous ketones or ketones from the outside, like in a powder, and so they're in less of a insulin-based metabolic state, and they're running on things like glucagon. So I'll talk about that in maybe next week. Maybe we should do that. But I have to discuss that in a whole nother video, because that's a whole nother whole nother topic to chew. So basically what I want to impress upon you is that we can't have high insulin and high glucagon at the same time. So we have to fix insulin problems before we will get the benefit of glucagon. Is this all making sense? Everybody wave at me that are tuning in here. So the first thing we have to fix is the insulin problem. So let's say that we fix the insulin problem. How do we get proper glucagon secretion? How do we harness the effects of glucagon? So the biggest thing, and you guys have heard me harp about this a little bit, is we have to focus on protein-rich meals. And I will tell you, based on my clinical practice, this is a really hard sell for women. And I don't particularly know why. I think it's because diet culture has really propagated this idea that women don't eat a lot of protein, or be careful, protein, you'll gain fat, which you'd have to eat a lot of protein to be gaining any fat. So that's a whole nother discussion. One question, yeah, I'll answer that in the other video. That's a really good question for the other video. The question was, is it bad if you are getting your energy from one source, glucose or ketones, and not the other? And I'll explain that, because that's really great. There's something else that you had asked about the difference in symptoms between insulin issues and glucagon. Is that the question? Can you clarify that for me, and I'll circle around and answer that. So we have to get protein into the diet. My favorite way to do this is with meat, with actual animal protein. And it doesn't have to be meat in the traditional sense. It can be things like fish, it can be things like eggs, it can be pork, chicken, lamb, beef. I personally do not have any issues with my patients eating beef. I think beef is a fantastic fuel source. It's really high in vitamins, and it's very nutrient dense. And if you guys have been hanging out with me for any length of time, you know that I'm always talking about a nutrient dense diet, because if we're going to be eating something, the point of eating is that we get fuel and we get nutrients. And nutrients are vitamins and minerals. So we want to be eating things that are really going to give us a lot of bang for our buck. So beef, I need to take a drink here real quick. I got my electrolytes in here, you guys. I talk about that a lot. Beef, if you buy the good kind of beef, is actually really anti-inflammatory. It has high amounts of omega-3s, and it has a really good fatty acid profile. Which the benefit of eating animal proteins is that you often get some really high quality fats with it as well. And fats help to stabilize your blood sugar, which helps with weight loss. So I try to get all of my ladies on protein at every single meal and with snacks. And protein ends up becoming our focus when we're designing their diet plan. So say they were more focused on fat for a while because they are trying to promote more satiety with their meals, or they were maybe more carb focused because they were, getting nutrition advice from the media. We end up switching that. So most women will need about 20 to 30 grams of protein at each meal. So that gets them anywhere from 60 to 90 grams of protein, and most of us need a bit more, and that is determined based on your body weight, how much poor connection. I hope I didn't lose you guys there. So your protein levels are highly based on your activity level, and what I will typically do is just run people through a protein calculator, and determine what their actual protein level is. But if you're new to protein, you should aim for that 20 to 30 grams of protein at every meal. And one of the biggest things that you can do is really focus on getting your protein in the morning, because morning protein is going to have a beneficial effect on the increase in cortisol that naturally happens in the morning. It's going to support your tissues a little bit more, because we know that cortisol increases the breakdown of protein and amino acids. So when your cortisol is higher, you should be eating higher protein. And ideally, our cortisol is high in the morning because cortisol helps wake us up in the morning. And so we need to eat protein levels to support that increase in cortisol. But also, if you have high protein levels in the morning, your energy levels are going to be way, way better all throughout the day, and you're also going to be less likely to have that energy dip anywhere from them. So protein, protein, protein. Another thing that can be helpful is making sure that you are getting, that you're actually doing a little bit of calculating of this protein. For instance, a lot of people are trained to eat 1 or 2 eggs, but an egg is anywhere from 6 to 7 grams of protein, and we are shooting for this 20 to 30 grams of protein at each meal range. So you actually need about 3 eggs to get close to that 20 grams, and then you need some other grams of protein to round it out. So some people will put collagen in their coffee. Hi, Darren. Some people will put, have a sausage on the side of their eggs. Some people do like a veggie smoothie with a veggie protein. Hi, Clean Origin. I don't actually know who you are, but you come to my videos. You're pretty cool. And so that helps round us out to that 20 to 30 gram levels of protein. For those of you that just tuned in, we were talking about glucagon tonight and how important hope I didn't lose you guys. My phone is, we're going to have to end soon because my phone's almost dead. We're talking about the glucagon insulin ratio and how you need to fix that to actually lose weight. So I'm talking about things right now that can help promote a low insulin, higher glucagon ratio or state in the body. So I was talking about how we need to really incorporate protein, preferably animal protein, so that we get all of those bioavailable amino acids. Let's see. Should we get a scale to measure our protein intake? How would I know if I'm getting those? Might have to plug you guys in. So let me plug you guys in here. Okay. So the question was, should we get a scale to measure our protein intake? How would I know if I'm getting those 20 grams of protein in my meal? And I think that's a great idea. I love food scales, and they're about get a food scale, and it can estimate how much protein you're getting. So a lot of labels will tell you how much protein you're getting, especially if it's a protein powder. If you're getting about 4 to 6 ounces of meat protein, you're going to get anywhere from 20 to 45 grams of protein, depending on the type of protein. So sometimes you can eyeball it, but for people that are new to actually getting in enough protein, I recommend that they track, whether that's reading labels or getting a food scale. And then they can go to a way of tracking that's reliant upon more visual cues. So for instance, one of my favorite things for protein is your hand size. So the palm of your hand, the size of the palm of your hand, about a ½ inch thick, is how much protein that you should be eating at least at every meal. So for instance, I'm a 5'9" female, so my palm is rather it's a lot larger than some women, and then it's ½ inch thick. So you might be underestimating how much protein, that serving size that you're giving yourself, but if you use the palm rule, that can make it a lot easier. So that was I'm losing you guys. I don't have good connection tonight, so I apologize. Another question, what do you think of the hydro beef protein powders? So those are Designs for Health product. I like them. I find that they can get really foamy in a smoothie, depending on how you blend it. And they're virtually tasteless. So that's really good. They're very similar in my mind to any of the other collagen proteins that are out there. So I'm not necessarily tied to doing hydro beef from that brand. Thanks for all the hearts, man. I'm not tied to the hydro beef idea. I think the idea of having collagen hydrolyzed can make it a lot easier on the gut for people to absorb, but you can get hydrolyzed collagen from other different sources. So it doesn't necessarily need to be that specific product. And you can get collagen proteins that are really high quality. Just make sure that it's from a really good source, you guys, because if it's not, then you know, think about what you're eating, because if you're eating something that's animal based, if you're eating something that's animal based, you want to make sure that that animal is healthy when you are actually eating the animal. So, you know, just think about that. There are some companies that have approached me about their collagen products, and I asked them, are you a grass-fed source? And they say no, which means where are you going to get the collagen from those animals? You're probably going to get it from the cheapest source, which is like CAFO, or in my opinion. So, is collagen sufficient source of protein if you... I do not have good connection over here, you guys. I think I'm going to have to move a little bit. Do you guys lose me when it does bad connection? Thank you for bearing with me. Let's try this. So, is collagen a sufficient source of protein if using it in a smoothie? Yes. Okay, so this must be better. It pauses? Oh, darn. Okay, so I'm glad it doesn't ruin the video. Okay, so let's talk about is a collagen sufficient source of protein if using it in a smoothie? So if people are using collagen, yes, the bad connection. Okay, I think I'm good, you guys. My internet in this space is not fantastic unless I'm in a very specific spot. So, okay. So, if you are using collagen as a source of protein, I'm all for that. But collagen only gives us a certain source of amino acids, and it doesn't provide all of them. So collagen isn't necessarily complete protein. It's really nourishing and it's really awesome to include in our diets. But if someone is using a collagen protein only in their smoothie, I usually recommend that they put in another protein source in there as well, so that they get the full spectrum of amino acids in there. So I'm a big fan of certain veggie proteins versus a whey protein. So if you're doing collagen, add in some sort of a veggie protein in there as well, and look at the source. Okay, so let's talk about Joyce's question. What are the differences in symptoms between insulin and glucagon? So you're not necessarily going to feel the symptoms that you're going to feel are going to be symptoms of either having low blood sugar or having high blood sugar. And most people don't feel any sort of symptoms from high blood sugar. It's kind of a silent issue. So, I mean, some people can feel just kind of off and spacey either way, whether they're high blood sugar or low blood sugar. But maybe some blurry vision from high blood sugar, but there's not a lot of symptoms associated with high blood sugar, especially if you're a normal person that's just kind of going up and down. If you're more in the diabetic range and you have high blood sugar all the time, then there's different signs and symptoms that we look for. But low blood sugar is most commonly seen as having, being shaky and irritable in between meals, being spacey, having mental fog, difficulty remembering things, brain fog. What else? Feeling like you eat a meal and you feel a lot better, or you eat and suddenly you have a lot of energy. So I guess one thing that would be helpful to talk about is if you have insulin resistance, what are the symptoms of that? So if you're insulin resistant, one thing that can often happen is that you feel really tired after a meal or after you eat, or especially something that's high in carbohydrates. And that's because you're suddenly putting a ton of glucose into the system and your body is not able to use it. So that can create some fatigue. So I always look for that with meals. Some people can get like if they have blood sugar ups and downs, they can get flushing with meals, or a sensation of feeling really hot after a meal. So that always clues me into a blood sugar problem. And if there's a blood sugar problem, you guys, there's going to be an insulin problem. So it's just a matter of, correcting the lifestyle problems to get us to where we need to go. Okay. Okay, this looks like this is working now. Yay! I moved over a little bit. Let me make sure there's no questions that I missed. Throw me some questions. I'm going to talk about a couple more things. So I talked about adding in more protein, which is really, really critical for almost everybody. And, you know, we're talking about weight loss, and most women I see will really underestimate their protein. I know I'm super guilty of this, so I'm always trying to get in more protein than I think that I need. So just know that you probably underestimate the protein that you are eating, unless you are someone that's been training for a long time and tracking and tracking and tracking, and you really are on point. Most women will undereat protein. And I see this especially as we age, as we get into perimenopause, menopause, and postmenopause. A lot of those women in menopause and postmenopause, they are really under eating protein, and so that is really super not helpful when your hormones have shifted to a lower estrogen state, and especially in perimenopause, when your body is starting to enter menopause and your hormones are going up and down, you need that protein as a blood sugar stabilizer and as an effect to help with any increases of cortisol. When your cortisol can be going up and down with the stresses of perimenopause, you need that protein to help balance it out. So I get most people back onto protein because I see it be a huge deal. Let's see, another question is, being tired after a meal a concern? Only if you notice it with not only healthy meals, but with heavy light meals too. Yeah, so generally tiredness after a meal should never occur, in my opinion. Being tired with a meal, like if you overeat something, can be normal. But if you're eating healthy meals and you're feeling tired after, you might have something going on. You might have a digestive issue, you could have insulin resistance, and you could have some sort of food allergy. That's actually really, really common. So look into that. Heavy meals can be a normal cause of feeling tired after meals, but it's not the only piece of the equation. I mean, the example that I would use is if you're like Thanksgiving, for instance. Here in America, we celebrate Thanksgiving, which is typically you eat all this crazy amounts of food all at once, and then everybody takes a nap after, which is horrible tradition in my opinion. I think eating some fun food is a great idea, but the amount that we eat on that day is just nuts. And it's culturally acceptable, which perpetuates this whole insulin problem that we have as a country. But a big meal like Thanksgiving you're gonna feel tired after it, but we shouldn't, a heavy meal, I guess I would ask what you mean by heavy meal, because if you're eating a heavy meal all the time and you're always feeling tired, then I would be curious as to why you're eating that way. Someone else, I'm breastfeeding and active. Would I need more than 20 to 30 grams? I'm always tired with brain fog. I also found out that I have a thyroid issue of some sort. So, looks like your name is Chloe. Sorry about the pause, you guys. Can't plug in over here. We'll see how far this goes. I'm breastfeeding and active. So, your protein needs change based on your activity level. So in general, your protein needs go up with breastfeeding, as does your need for everything. Same when you're pregnant. And most people that are breastfeeding are therefore postpartum. And so in the postpartum time, we know that you just built a human being, out of nothing, literally. So you need a ton of nutrients. So you would probably need more than 20 to 30 grams a day, but that could also, the 20 to 30 grams, what I was talking about, that is per meal. So that is 3 times a day. So 20 to 30 grams per meal times 3. So you might need more depending on your activity levels and how much you're breastfeeding too. But I can't necessarily give you an actual number because I'm not your doctor. At least I don't know. I don't recognize your Instagram name. But figure out your thyroid issue if you have a thyroid issue. And if you need help with that, I can totally help with that. I help a lot of women with thyroid problems. Okay, so protein. we need to eat protein. The other thing that I would say is that to get your glucagon and insulin ratio correct, you have to lower your blood sugar. So you have to do all of the good lifestyle stuff of limiting stress and cooking healthy meals, eating vegetables, limiting simple sugars, not eating sugary things alone, always combining them with a fat and protein, being active. And you guys have to start weight training. A lot of people are in this whole Orange Theory, yoga, running type of craze that's really big right now, especially down in San Diego. I don't know where you guys are coming from, but we need to be having weight-bearing exercises to stimulate muscle growth, because that improves our insulin resistance and our insulin use, which then improves our glucagon use. So to really get the full benefits of glucagon, we have to fix the insulin problem. So if you are chronically, if you are on this chronic cardio idea, you need to slow down and pick up something heavy. I always recommend that women learn the 3 basic lifts from a trainer, or they do classes to learn this, but learn how to bench, learn how to squat, learn how to deadlift, and then get on a program. Let's see. Then I think I'm lacking protein because I'm breastfeeding around the clock. Yeah, if you are breastfeeding, you are putting so much nutrients into that little baby milk. So you need a lot more nutrients when you're breastfeeding. Yeah, DM me about the thyroid. I can see if I can help you, for sure. A lot of people don't know how to treat thyroid, so bring yourself my way. The other thing that I would mention is I will often prescribe supplements to help people with their insulin problems, because you can give insulin sensitizing nutrients. However, with glucagon, trying to get that right, we have to work on the insulin piece first. So there's not really any supplements that are gonna really improve your glucagon release, because to improve glucagon, we have to get you into a lower not a lower blood sugar state, not a high blood sugar state, and we need to improve your insulin. So I don't give any supplements per se for glucagon. Maybe if we are working on the insulin piece, then yes, sometimes I do that with people. But sometimes if I use the supplements too early on in treatment, I think it makes people forget they really need to stick with lifestyle stuff, because with our with the culture of medicine in this country, it's very normal to go to the doctor and get prescribed a pill. And naturopathic medicine, I do use supplements, but supplements are a supplement. They're a supplement to what you're currently doing. So if we're not shifting your lifestyle, then you're not really going to see a ton of improvement, because excuse my French, you can't out-supplement a shitty diet. A mentor told me that, and I love that. It's because it's so true. So, if your doctor has recommended different pills for you, the pills could be really helpful, or the supplements can be really helpful, but you have to be diligent on the lifestyle. And I feel like that is one thing as Americans that we just don't relate to as much, because we have this entitlement that we should be able to do whatever we want to. And I find that carries into how people view their health. They're like, oh, well, Susie Q is skinny and she eats ice cream every night. And it's like, well, Susie Q is not you, and it's going to catch up to Susie Q. So don't compare yourself to other people. Stay in your lane, because if we're trying to get somewhere with your health, we need to focus on you and not compare ourselves to other people. And I see this all the time with protein intake. Ladies, oh my gosh, you see what other ladies are eating and you're thinking, wow, she's not eating a lot of protein, or wow, she's eating a lot. And then we all get self-conscious about like, am I eating too much or too little? We just need to eat what you need. We need to get you eating what you need to eat, and don't look at what is on other people's plates. Don't go down that nutrition comparison road, because it doesn't work. So I guess let's kind of wrap this up here, you guys. If you have any questions, throw them out. I'm going to answer them. I hope I really drove home tonight that Insulin is a big player, but glucagon is really important because glucagon will help us not be in that like chronic fat storage state, whereas insulin will. And if insulin is high, then glucagon is low. So we want to be in a more, we want to help our glucagon do what it needs to do. So I'm going to post this video on YouTube and my Instagram TV, so you guys will see it. I'm sorry for all the people that just popped on. This video is ending, but I'm also going to put up a little post online on my blog, on my website, drmegnd.com, which explains this as well. So I'm going to leave this on for a couple minutes and field some questions. How can we find out what supplements we need? Like, what tests should we be requesting from our doctors? So this is a great question. I talk about this a little bit throughout my whole feed. So if you're new to following me, scroll back a little bit. I have a lot of different posts on labs with Dr. Meg. Really, to answer that question, you have to work with a naturopathic doctor, someone like me that will, tell you what supplements you need, and that is based on a really in-depth history and then blood work if you need it. You can, if we're going to talk about blood work in terms of insulin, you can test your insulin levels, and you want to have your insulin levels be fasting, so pretty much first thing when you wake up in the morning, and you want a fasting insulin to be less than 10 and greater than 2.5. So 2.5 to 10 on standard American labs. I think it's nanograms per mil or something like that, but I don't know the units off the top of my head. So standard American labs, 2.5 to 10 is where we want you. The labs will typically allow your insulin to be up all the way to 25, but if you're over 10 or 15, then your insulin secretion is probably way too much, so that's a problem. Joyce, I do work with patients virtually. I do work with clients virtually. It's different how we consult about things. But I can give you a lot of different advice depending on what state you're in, and whether you're in NorCal or a different part of California, or if you're somewhere else. So I do see clients virtually. So just reach out to me. There's lots of new names that I haven't recognized on this video, so I'm really glad that you all joined in. Oh, California, just call me. I can work with you. That's easy. I'm in San Diego. I do video conferences, but where else was I going with that? But yeah, Dr. Meg ND, there's lots of different info on my website, drmegnd.com, that really will describe to you like how I can help you, how we can work together, prices for different consults and things like that. But yeah, there's lots of different newbies on this video. I love seeing new names. So yeah, you guys can always stalk me on Instagram or head on over to my website, drmegnd.com. If you know my Instagram handle, you can find me everywhere. My website, my YouTube, my Twitter. I'm not a huge social media fan, but I'm good at Instagram, so this is my jam here. So you can always find me on Instagram, which is fun. So I'm going to turn off this video now, and it will be posted up everywhere. Everybody, thank you so much for joining. This was great. For those of you that are new to my Instagram lives, I do Instagram lives every Monday night, unless check my Instagram unless there's some reason why I'm not, but typically every Monday night at 5 p.m. Pacific time. And I do this strategically so that some of the East Coast peeps can join as well. You're welcome. I love it when people bring questions. So Monday nights at 5 p.m., you'll always find me here. And yeah, it was great connecting with you all. And thank you for bearing with me with my technical issues. My room doesn't get much good at internet. So I will see you guys next week, and have a good, what is today? Have a good Monday. Bye guys.